loaders. We're tougher than anyone in the system. Every single one of you knew, you were certain on the day you were born, our life is hard. Now, there is air enough only for 52 aboard. Only 52 of us can go. There will be children, young women, and young men getting on. If we have to stay back, we have to stay back. So let's be tough and do what needs to be done. All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you hadn't guessed, yes, we're talking about The Expanse. And that is my favorite scene from season 2, the Belter speech, 52 people. We'll get into it as we go, but enough delay. Let's introduce our guests. To my right is returning for the 3rd week in a row. I don't think anybody's ever been on 3 weeks in a row, John.
No, I can't. What on earth have I done to deserve this? I really don't know.
This is my 3rd time, but not 3 weeks in a row.
Right.
Good job, John.
So John at John Webster Film on Twitter, getting to be a really good friend of the channel, has a lot of fun stuff to say about a lot of different fandoms. And surprisingly, some of the conversations we've had sort of on Twitter and behind the scenes, we tend to disagree about a lot of stuff, but I love that about you, that we're that kind of conversation.
I knew when I made the Avengers comment earlier today, I was like, if Steven sees this, he's going to have words.
I mean, I just have a different point of view. That's all.
Oh, yeah. And that's fine. Right? I think that's great.
Yeah, some of the best conversations I've ever had were people I didn't agree with. Yeah. All right. And also returning this week, though, we've got down there, we've got Nessie, the questing beast, coming back hot for season 2 of The Expanse, joining us again. Nessie, you are disappearing. There you go.
Hi, Nessie.
Hi, Nessie. Introduce yourself.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me, guys? I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, the internet hate me. I have a little feedback. I noticed that when you guys were chatting. So if it gets bad, let me know, and I'll go audio only. So
all right, well, got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. Hi, chat. Good to see everybody back. See some familiar faces out there. We're here to give you the Belter lowdown on season 2.
Belter lowdown. I love it.
All right. See, that's why we have Nessie along.
I'm here for the hot take.
And also returning to the channel, she was in the Expanse overview. We did the fandom spotlight for The Expanse. She's also been the subject of, and I Know That Nerd, for those of you who like my other stuff. It's Courtney Mazza. Hey, Courtney, how you doing?
Hey, everyone. It's good to be back. Thanks for having me, Steven.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. We met at, for those of you that don't know, I met Courtney at Con of Thrones, and I've known her the longest of this group. And she came to my barbecue, which was an awesome party.
It was
a
highlight.
Yeah. Okay, so we're here to talk about The Expanse season 2. And this whole thing kind of came about because Nessie was like, I want to talk about The Expanse. And so here we are. I'm so glad you did it too, because I really enjoyed these. I enjoyed our season 1 stream, and I'm looking forward to kicking off season 2 here. So let me ask you something. I led with I did my homework and I wrote it down and watched it about 4 times, 5 times in a row to make sure I got the inflections right. But
wait, you didn't know it by heart, Steven?
No, I did not know it by heart.
God, I feel betrayed.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. So before we get into like the episode by episode recaps, any other like standout highlight moments for anybody? And
whoever wants to go first.
Actually, John, I'd really love to hear from you, because John, for those of you that don't know or don't remember from last time, hasn't seen season 3 yet. He basically powered through season 1 back 2 times in a row, talked about season 1, and then has spent the last 2 weeks going through season 2 a full 2 times.
Yep.
And so he still hasn't seen season 3. So, John, what's a standout moment for you?
I mean, well, it's not going to come as any surprise. It's the final scene of episode 5, Home.
Okay.
I mean, one of the most beautiful scenes I think I've ever seen on anything. I mean, you and I talked the last time about how, it's the placement of the Expanse and sort of, our personal lists of science fiction shows. And while I'm still going to hang on to my, Battlestar as #1 fandom, I will say that this season and probably that episode really raised the bar for me with
Right.
the show. I mean, it's gone from a show that I was really into with the last season, and now I think it's undoubtedly one of the best science fiction shows I've ever seen. So
right on.
Yeah, and that final scene, I told you I downloaded the music cue from that scene. It's just so beautiful, and the visual effects, and everything, and the emotion. I mean, it's a tearjerker. So that's my moment.
All right. Well, Courtney, you look like you've got something to say.
I'm just so excited we get 2 new badass female characters introduced that I absolutely love. We get Bobby Draper, who I told you on our Expanse overview or whatever stream that I want to be Bobby Draper. Nothing like her at all, but I would love to be as badass as she is. And we get Kamina Drummer, who I also really love. In the books, we get a ton of new characters, and, with text, it's easy to introduce them all and make you care about them. And so Drummer gets aspects of 2 other characters that I really love, sort of melded into her plot lines for the show. So in some ways, I even love her more in the show because she's aspects of 3 of the characters that I really just find so compelling. But Bobby is just Bobby, and Bobby teaming up with Avarsala just
Yeah, Team ABC is pretty strong.
Yes. So that's very
we lost
exciting
Nessie
for me.
for a moment there.
And the whole Prax storyline. I mean, we'll get into all of it,
Yeah.
but it just keeps expanding.
Well, it is an expensive story.
Yeah.
Okay, enough with the bad puns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess we'll get Nessie back as soon as we can. She's having internet trouble.
Can I just say also that I'm going to totally give in at this point, because while I threw her character some mad respect for last season, let me just say that this season Avarsarella was like one of my top favorite characters. She was freaking awesome this year.
Right.
She is.
Well, while we wait for Nessie to see if she can reconnect, why don't we say hi to everybody in the chat? I see Anna Iglesias was the very first one in the chat. Hi, Anna. How you doing? Mom, Betsy Mitchell. Hi. I see John Webster, whoever that is.
I think I know that guy.
Heard of him. Pedar Ruan. You were here for the last Expanse stream, Pedar. It's very good to have you back. Leaf Underhill, aka Mother of Tribbles. How you doing? Danny McKay in the house. How you doing, Danny? Ridiculous Ed Tollett.
Tollett's here.
Moderator and Patreon extraordinaire. I saw some other people. I'm scrolling through now. Wheezy Squeezebox. Hey, Wheezy, the official timekeeper of of my channel. She always reminds us when it's 20 after the hour. Melissa Schultz, how you doing? Looks like we got Nessie back. I'm going to keep saying hi to folks in the chat, though. I know I saw Kelly too. Jaded Redhead is in the chat. So yeah, we got a good crew. All right, so Nessie, we got you back. We've talked about the things that we've talked about what stood out to us for season 2. Why don't you give us a shot at, or give us an idea of what season 2 had for you. What was the strongest moment or strongest aspect of the season?
Well, John's taken the one about, the Miller and Julie scene. So I'm not going to expand on that, even though it was like the best moment of season 2 and marks, the climax of that arc. And
our disagreement
of course,
continues.
The meeting between Bobby and Avasarala was like chef's kiss. And yes, we do get introduced to a lot of new characters. We have some new locations. We actually get to see Mars for the first time, which is kind of cool. The red planet's there in the in episode 1, I believe. So we finally get to see those guys. And we get introduced to one of the most, my little cinnamon roll, Prax Meng, who is one. Oh yeah, he is. He's a cinnamon roll, and he's just too good for this system. So yeah, we get to meet him, and he's a very, very standout character, I think.
Yeah, and I agree. And I'm going to get into Prax, and especially the Prax Amos relationship a little bit later on, because that's my favorite relationship of the season.
When Prax says he's my best friend to May.
That's season 3.
Okay. Oh. Sorry. Sorry. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, I think I talked over you just enough. Don, don't watch this back. I think I talked over you just enough.
Check mark 1.
I'm in trouble. You can kick me off if I ruin the stream for you.
Not to have something spoiled for you at some point.
It's so hard. I've read all the written material.
Yeah.
I've seen all the seasons. It all just has amalgamated into one story in my head.
Well, truth be told, I mean, and I'd be completely dishonest if I said nothing was spoiled for me, because I think just from not any like direct spoilers, but I think I had the general notion going, into season 2 that Miller wasn't going to make it out just because of various things, like who was talking on, like convention panels and, people talking about, Miller and season really makes season 1. I'm like, well, that doesn't bode well for the future. I just didn't necessarily know how and when it was going to happen. But yeah, so basically what I'm saying is very vague spoilers. I won't get upset over.
Yeah.
Right. And the way that they
friend, big deal. But yes, that is. I cannot wait for 2 weeks when I gush about that scene for 15 minutes straight. But this week, Nessie, do you have the document open?
I do. Yes.
Do you want to kick off season 1 discussion and talk about our episode 1 discussion? Like, where do we?
I can.
Where do we pick up with this season?
We pick up with the guys on the Rocinante immediately following their escape from Eros Station. So they just barely made it out with their lives. Maybe not their sanity. Maybe not, their friends. They lost. Miller just lost, his childhood friend. So we open up there with, I believe, they are in the med bay. Alex is in the med bay with the 2 or 3 felters that they were able to get off Eros Station. So everybody's kind of dealing with the aftermath of what happened. They're just have that what the heck just happened moment.
Can I just point out, I love the beautiful symmetry of the season, that it starts off with Holden in the med bay dreaming about a scenario in which he's betrayed Naomi and the crew by bringing the protomolecule on board. Of course, he wakes up and it's a dream, but then the season ends with Naomi revealing her betrayal to him and the crew by giving it to I'm sorry, I know the characters.
Fred
Johnson. It's just I love that symmetry of the two scenes, and they're very similar.
And I think Nessie brought up that the season before ended in the med bay, didn't it, Nessie? You wrote that into the...
Yeah, I believe it did. Right. I think they had just gotten they had just gotten Miller and Holden into the med bay, I think.
Yeah, they were giving them
of course here the radiation, yeah.
And so the first thing we see, is him waking up
still in the med bay.
That he's contaminated his family, his crew.
His family. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's just the beginning of Holden's PTSD, I think, from what he experienced on Eros and what he's had to go through, is that he is just completely paranoid about the protomolecule getting loose and just doing what it did to Eros anywhere else, because he's seen firsthand what happens when that when the contagion is out. So he becomes very driven, I think. That's his arc in season 2 is I got to wipe out the blue goo wherever I can find it.
Right.
And it comes across as madness and paranoia, but I mean, it's a valid concern. So how crazy is he?
What I love about it is you see his descent, into obsession, but you understand where it's coming from. So it seems in a way perfectly reasonable, but he just goes too far with it.
Yep.
Right. Almost. He almost goes.
Yeah, and all thanks to my favorite character, Alex. He brings him back from the brink.
Yeah. I think this is the season where Alex jumped up several notches for me. I liked him in the beginning, but man, the way he handled everything this season, from the loss of the drop pods to talking Miller off the ledge, or Holden off the ledge, and just
he has a conversation with Amos where he's the voice of reason this season. He really is. And we're starting to question Naomi, who was very much the voice of reason in the first season, and now it's Alex that's really holding the family together.
Yeah, it's Dad's turn to make dinner.
Mm-hmm.
I love
ravioli.
I love all of his
cowboy lasagna.
I love all of his personal time with the Rossi. I mean, it's
you
beautiful.
Just see it. He just see it when he starts referring to the Rossi as a separate individual that is literally, becomes the 5th crew member and maybe Alex's new wife. I'm not sure. He's fairly fond of her.
One of the best comedic parts of the whole season is the second to the third to the last episode, when he says, he uses "we" describing himself, and Rosa and Amos goes "we," and he's like,
"We."
Anyway.
Right.
Exactly.
It's a love story. It's his dream to fly a ship like that, but also it is a brilliant device, because so much of these books is in the characters' minds, and so much of that alone time that Alex spends on the Rocinante, we are seeing his point of view in his head. We're seeing his thought process. So I found that this was a brilliant way to adapt it to screen, because instead of there being long silences where we're just seeing Alex on the ship, we're actually getting that window into his thought processes, because he's vocalizing it to the ship.
Well,
it's absolutely perfect. They couldn't have adapted it any better way, and just to make the Rossi as a character, and to see Alex's relationship with her is just really great. Especially the scene where he's playing the drinking game. It's like he and the Rossi are playing the game.
That the flip down the steps where he's catching the drops in 0G.
Right,
it's so fun.
Right.
I will say this, though. It makes sense for him to talk to the ship especially in those times when he's alone, when he's separated from the rest of the crew because they're down on Ganymede and he's up hiding out behind a moon somewhere. We all talk to ourselves. It's a very human thing. And it also is part of the process of when you speak something out loud, it triggers a different part of your brain than when you just think about it. Also, when you read a thing or write a thing, it's part of imprinting ideas on your brain. So I think it's very natural. And you're right. It's a slam dunk that's the way to do it because you don't want to have the disembodied voiceover of Alex talking while he's just sitting there and his lips aren't moving.
Yeah.
That's 1960 stuff, and it just doesn't work in the modern era,
And I want to talk about something relating to Amos before we get too far, because my attitudes on Amos shifted considerably this season.
I can imagine.
But as one last, homage to sort of my feelings of, crazy Amos, which was my, sort of appraisal of his character last season. It's the way Miller describes him in the opening episode. What does he say? You seem kind of like a trigger happy, lunatic to me, or something to that.
I think it's trigger happy nut job.
Nut job. There you go.
We lost Courtney for a second. Did I do that?
How did I do that? I'm sorry.
I don't know.
I pressed a button. It was a mistake. I hope
I got
back.
you. I got you back.
We're having so many difficulties today.
Well,
I'm still learning StreamYard. I'm sorry. I won't touch any more buttons.
And
I can. StreamYard is fine for most things. I got to be honest with you, but I might try.
It's just a new format for me.
Yeah. Well, and I can pop up people's comments, but when I do that, it covers you and Nessie, so I'm just nope, can't do that. If it was me and John, fine, but I'm not covering up the pretty ones.
You guys are pretty too.
Speak for yourself, Steven.
Yeah. See, John's rocking his Sandry shirt today.
Yep.
I have that shirt. I love that shirt. I'm glad I didn't wear it because it would have been a who wore it better, and you're way prettier than me.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
I do kind of. So it's that trigger happy nut job scene.
It's great because at that point I was just laughing my butt off because that's exactly what I was saying, throughout the last season, and it feels like he's vocalizing,
And when he and Miller actually come to blows, it's pretty harrowing from Miller's standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
because he sucker punches the crap out of him too. I mean, he does cheap shot Amos. And Amos puts him down with one hit, as you might expect. Although that lick was pretty good. But Amos is made out of concrete, I think. And then he's stay down. And he doesn't stay down. And then he gets up. And it literally takes Naomi pulling him off to not murder Miller in that second. And all he can say as he walks away is, I told him to stay down. Because when he didn't, and again, this is me filling in the blanks. I haven't read any of the books, but filling in the blanks from the standpoint of somebody who has a lot still in the show. Amos is concerned about survival, and first and foremost, and secondly, about the survival of people he thinks are good people. And when Miller didn't stay down, he was that tripped his survival switch. I can't trust him not to come after me. And I love that I love that scene so much because it's so visceral. The way he, the way he throws him on the table, he's choking him out, and love it. I love my Amos though. That's the murder part of the murder snuggles though, right?
I feel like I got to stand up for my man Miller a little bit at that point because it's kind of not a fair fight to be taking down the guy who's recovering from cancer. But
I mean, I didn't say it was a fair fight. I'm saying that I loved the scene because of what it says, both about Miller and Amos, because Miller didn't stay down. He's not a stay down kind of guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he shot his best friend that he grew up with, that he's been friends with for his entire life, from childhood into adulthood. And that's, you know, he deserved a punch for that.
Yeah, I mean, Miller doesn't have any family. I mean, he was a ward of the state. And
this
yes,
was like
and
essentially his brother.
Tamara was his brother, his Barada. And they grew up together in a pachinko parlor, you know, stealing coins just to feed themselves. So they'd been, you know, they had lived like the rat, what do they call it? The station rat life, you know, and
with
they
only
always
each other to rely on.
They
and
always had
even to this day, they still call on each other for favors and always support each other. So, I mean, that's a significant loss for Miller.
Yeah, and I had a little grievance with his friend last season, because I said, well, he was going to leave him, but to Miller's credit, he doesn't blame him whatsoever for that. No, it was the right call. You know, and he even says to, you know, to his friend, even lying there dead, you know, that he still owes him one, even now, you know. So
yeah,
love that.
Okay,
because Miller understands survival too, and it probably was the right call. I mean, but
I think there's a difference between what an earther considers survival and what a belter considers survival. And hold on a second, everyone, because we have another guest. Whoa, Bernie.
Oh,
hello,
no, I can't hear
coming
anybody.
in hot, Bernie.
Hang on. This is what you get for no. Hang on, I hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Sorry. I really disrupted. I said I wasn't gonna, but I did.
I will take your disruption anytime. You got it.
I fully expected Bernie to be coming in hot.
I put on a neck tattoo.
Oh, I see that. You got your belter tat.
It's actually, it's Kenny Powers. Eastbound and Down. Kenny fucking Powers. Anybody got that one? No.
No, sorry. Okay, so everybody, welcome Bernie to the channel. Bernie, I think we've been on a stream somewhere before, but I don't think you've ever actually been on my channel before.
Not anymore. No.
You don't stream often. But hey, we're lucky to have you, because
here I am.
Bernie is my fandom twin sister. At least that's how I look at her. Nessie's my big sister. Yeah. Bernie's my twin sister, and then I have a little sister out there too somewhere. I hope you're doing good.
We're old. Is that what you're telling us, that we're old?
Yes. Well, you are in fact very near my age. I think you're a little bit younger than me, but anyway, Bernie, say hi to everybody. I know.
What's up?
You should know who Bernie L from the chat. She's always in the chat for those of you who.
Bernie the Blunt, Bernie the Burnt, but I had to stop using those because I didn't realize that my teacher's kids were seeing the Google accounts, like what you call yourself when you're tied into YouTube. Right. They're all kind of looking at me like, so I had to go to Bernie L. That's why I went.
Oh anyway. Well, Bernie, we've been talking about season 1. We've literally only hit the highlights of like what it was your favorite moment, and then we've talked a little bit about episode 1. So let me ask you, what was like the highlight moment of season 2 for you?
Oh, well, I mean, like I've talked to you guys about it before. That last shot, I mean, it was the season finale, and it was like 2 minutes before that last like deconstruction shot. I thought was just gorgeous. And it just blew my mind that, you know, here's a show that was on Sci-Fi at the time that is doing these awesome graphics. I mean, the show doesn't get enough credit for some of the beautiful shots that they do, you know, produce. It's art, really. You know? Even though it looks like space, and there's some fucking stars, but it really takes a lot to make that look real, and to make, and then when the ships go over, like everything is just really incredibly done. So that was my favorite part. And I also into the episode, I mean the season, and then there's a whole bunch of shit I liked, but you know, that was probably my holy crap moment. You know.
Whole crap moment, Bert. You got it. You know, when it just part
just gets ripped to pieces.
Just gets disassembled. It was disassembled.
Completely.
It wasn't just blown up.
No, it was like taken apart in a very specific
bolt by bolt. Yes.
Like how
and it
does
was
this thing
precise chaos? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
like just the job they've done bringing this to screen is incredible because some of the things they describe in the books, you can't even visualize them in your head. So the fact that they managed to translate them is just incredible.
Right.
Right. It just turned that ship into like a schematic drawing of itself, where every part goes here and where, you've seen those big diagrams when you're putting together something from IKEA. And then it's exactly, and it's
or
a
Legos,
ship. or Legos, exactly, right. And it's a ship. Oh, they took it apart.
It's another one of those moments where I was just like, "What the hell?" Because it's not what I expected to happen. Like,
right. Hey, whatever you're expecting the protomolecule to do, trust me, it's not doing that.
No. Not at all.
It's crazy.
Nope.
Yeah,
that's a beautiful arc. Also, that whole storyline, and which is why I didn't expect it to end in that fashion, because the character journey between I don't know the character's name, the scientist who's Alvar Sorel's friend, and also Yanis, and they you see them at polar opposites and they gradually come to an understanding, and so you kind of expect that to continue on in some way, but nope, that's the journey for those two, and then it's over.
Yeah, I forgot about the Arbogast, man. That's that scene is one of those that I think will always stick with me, just because of how unexpected it was when I saw it. So I'm going to call an audible, guys. We kind of had thought about going through this an episode at a time. We've already jumped all over the place, and we've technically only covered episode 1, and we've been going for 30 minutes or a little over. So we are not going to try to hold to an episode by episode,
there's so much on in season 2. The plot is it just picks up so many different plot threads, and they're all covered at different parts during the during the season or the in every episode. We could have an hour discussion just on, like, say, episode 5. We could have an hour discussion just on that one itself. So anytime.
I will say this too, like, probably because of where I live, when in season 1, I considered myself an Earther. Okay, I'm from Earth, so call me basic, but I considered myself an Earther. By the time we got to the end of season 2, I was a Belter, and Prax was a big part of that. Naomi was a big part of that. Miller is a big part of that.
Right.
But honestly, I can't think of her name. But the lady who owns the Weeping Somnambulist.
Oh, Melissa.
That's her.
That broke my heart. Oh.
Yeah. Like, what a goddamn hero.
And yet still strength. Even after having just lost her husband, she still saves people. And
yes. And the way the Belter's outside, I can't think of the big strong guy's name, but like the speech that I delivered at the very beginning, where he's talking about, we know what it means, but we have to let those with the best chance of survival be the ones to get on. Hence the children and the young men and young women only. And that scene has heartbreak in 15 different ways. Sorry, sister, no more. And she breaks down. And then, the guy, his wife makes it on, and he's like, I'll be on board. He literally, of course, it's written. That's Hollywood writing to some extent. You can't, but like, he doesn't make it. And to see that grim acceptance on his face is just, That I think that might be the scene that made me go, I'm a belter, man. These are the people I want to rock with.
But I think that one of the overarching themes is that everybody starts out with their own faction. And then even Naomi, who is a hardcore belter, is for humanity at large. You know, Bobby at the beginning of season 2, I forgot how much she embodied all of that hatred
like a nationalist even.
Oh my goodness, she was ready to kill the Earthers. She was ready to go to war.
Just dry and ground their hills to dust.
Yes. And then by the end of the season, she's fighting for humanity at large. I mean,
everybody flip-flops, you know, you just try to do the right thing. Earth is the lamest of all, you know, but after you see her, like, oh, except for Christian, she like saves us, you know, with her awesome looks and and being smart.
I would definitely say I don't identify with any one you know, sort of faction or group, because there's good amongst all of them, and there's despicable people amongst each group. So I mean, as much as I'd love to, you know, plant my flag with the belt, you know, you've got plenty of, you know, horrible people.
The Black Sky Collective. I mean,
I mean, that's not to say that again, but like if you, I guess I consider myself a belter because of the way the vast majority of belters interact with each other. They have to look out for each other. They have to.
Right. And I think one of the big changes where Bobby really kind of changed her perspective about the Earth people was when she finally she got to Earth to tell her story, and then she goes on that walk, because even though she's from Mars and has, you know, she's never seen the ocean. She has never seen an ocean, and that was the one thing that she wanted. And I don't know if that's just something that she's remembering, you know, her grandfather's grandfather talk about, because, you know, her family comes from the Pacific, and they always had that relationship to, you know, to the ocean. And it was the one thing that she wanted to see while she was there. And when she took that walk and she just started talking to average people, the undocumented people, the people that are on basic, you know, or, you know, just trying to scrape a living, and she sees that one person who I think really changed her mind. He told her how to get to the ocean. I can't remember the guy's name. He was just a brief 2 or 3 minutes with her.
Which by the way, does he walk really fast, or was he an apparition?
He disappeared. No, he kind of disappeared, which was weird. Like he was like an apparition. It was
she was looking down. He walked away.
And she did a drug deal. I mean, really, you know, she's on Earth for one day and she's dealing drugs.
Can't trust those Earthers, man.
There's out of town Mars.
How to orient to the horizon, and he was.
Jeez.
I will say that is no, Courtney.
And she realized that, and she realized that what she had been given for free was probably going to save the lives of, you know, 50 people in the summertime. You know, when these people just had no clean water to drink.
Yeah, she had no idea it was like
they weren't on. Right. All she'd heard about was Earth with takers. You know, not that they had to survive too.
And how visceral was it when she went and put her toes in the sand and in the ocean? Like, I could almost feel it. And Bern, I know you feel me on this. Like, how realistic was that portrayal of future New York, that they had the walls up to protect it from the water, that there were poor people living right underneath those gleaming skyscrapers. Just everything about it was so believable.
Yeah, Battery Park goes underwater every time a storm comes through. You know what I mean? So that was what Battery Park is, Lower Manhattan. So that's where the Statue of Liberty is. So you look at that concave like that. She's in a pit. You know what I mean? Which is always like that. Always like blows my mind every time I see the opening. I'm like, oh, there's a lady singing in Norwegian or something, and then I look at that. I'm like, holy shit, that's not that far from happening, really. I mean,
no, it's definitely not. And I know I made Steven read The Churn and he made Nessie read it, but when they describe Baltimore, it is not as well protected as that. So the parts, and you can tell they really knew Baltimore well, because the parts that are high, like Federal Hill, are still out of the water, but other parts are underneath. So Manhattan, that has that financial infrastructure, of course, is going to have this huge seawall built up to protect it, and all those gleaming skyscrapers intact. But Baltimore has just been allowed to sink into the sea, and that contrast for me was just so believable. I mean, it's just so real.
John, you haven't read The Churn yet, have you?
No.
You have to.
You could at any time. There's no real spoilers for the main story.
No spoilers.
But it is a fantastic short story. It's about 2.5, maybe 3 hours on Audible or an audio.
It's just Amos's backstory.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that.
It's so good, Bernie. He's in like ghetto Baltimore. He's not even on basic. He's completely out of the system. He's involved with like these mob
organized
groups.
crime. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
We get from him. Yeah,
just
the tidbits.
So good.
He's got a good grip, even though he's got crazy eyes. He's got a good grip on reading people, and without even
he has
seconds, he's street smarts. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It might be a good opportunity to mention, since we're not doing episode by episode anymore. I really liked, speaking of The Churn, the sort of juxtaposition between his, sort of talk about the churn last season and him being told by, Prax about the Cascade. And I felt like it was sort of a similar imparting of, wisdom, just in the other direction this time.
Right. You're right, because the churn is like when the game changes, the churn is the changing of the game. The Cascade is also like the changing of is the failure of one thing leading to the next,
What a powerful
it's exactly like a cascade. Exactly.
I was a little confused. I'm glad I watched again about Epstein. You know what episode is that when it's like right in the middle?
Drive.
Is that Paradigm Shift?
Because it was named for him.
Yeah. Where he is like, what is this about? Why are they showing him? And it's and I went and I kind of looked it up, and it's about how that technology saved Mars and Earth from going to war, and it brought peace because that technology they all wanted to share. So I guess they're kind of comparing it to this protomolecule and what that's going to do, if it's going to is going to tear them apart or bring them together, though, who knows? I mean, it kind of looks a little bit shady right now, as to what they're going to do with it and what's happening. I mean, I got to be careful not to spoil Johnny here.
No, we find out by the end. Yeah, by the end of the season. There's a novella
about that too, and it's so fascinating the way that it like draws parallels between when England owned America, and it took so long to get here that it was impossible to actually control that colony. But then technology was invented where we could traverse the ocean quickly, and then all of a sudden space, which has always been measured in distance, really in time that takes to travel somewhere, we could be at that colony in no time, and it just completely revolutionized the game and opened up areas of space that they never would have reached otherwise.
Right. Yeah. I'm sorry. I thought we lost Nessie for a second.
Amanda.
No, she's still there. Yeah, there's a couple of saw Aziz and Amanda both show up in the chat. Hello, lovely friends. How are you? Speaking of Aziz will be my guest on I Know That Nerd next week. Just so you know.
Very cool.
I've been looking forward to that one for a minute. So
if my streak has to come to an end, it's definitely.
Yeah, you're not invited back next week, John. You can come chat.
Okay.
You want to know something else that I noticed, and you book readers might notice something about this, but every season they seem to mention like, well, we didn't. I wasn't here for season 1 whenever it was a couple weeks ago, but when what's her name died and the ship, the Canterbury blew up, did she say I'm pregnant? Was she going to tell me she was pregnant?
Oh, when you like Jim,
We
there's
don't
something
know.
you need to know.
We
Jim,
don't
there's something,
know.
and then. In this I think it's the first episode of the second season, he says, I got some of my swimmers on ice. And then, like, why is he bringing up, like, is there a baby involved somewhere? Is this, like, does it go this far ahead in time? No,
I think
well,
it's
we can talk.
thinking about actually, yeah. I think
So-
he and Naomi are
weird.
just having those conversations where, you know, he knows he's in love with her and he can see, you know,
That was a
introducing
fast falling in
her
love.
to his parents. Yeah, I mean, he mentions introducing her to his family. I think in this season, like he would love for her to meet his family,
Yeah.
which is a big
Shirtless
thing
message.
because you know.
Yeah, you
That's
mean
a big
he
thing
would
for
like
him.
for Naomi to meet his family?
Yeah.
For Naomi to meet his
except that
family.
would crush her brittle belter bones.
Well, in the books they
Just keep
talk about
reading,
meeting
people.
somewhere on like I think they talk about meeting like on the moon on Luna. Yeah, Luna. They were going to meet up on Luna before all
They
the
could Maester aim in
Eros
her.
stuff.
Maester
I
aim in
shall
her.
not
Put her in a tub.
Put her in a tank.
Put her in a keg.
Yeah.
Or a cask, whatever you call it. Oh, too funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so this season we get to meet Sergeant Roberta, Bobby.
We've
Gunny,
talked a little bit
Draper.
about Bobby, but please continue loving on that woman.
And yeah, she's great. I thought, oh my God, this woman is a badass, and I loved her from the get-go. And I'm glad that she had some morals, so she was able to see what was right and wrong and switch when it's necessary, switch sides when necessary. And she's just such a badass, you know, and she's just she doesn't take any shit from anyone, and she's just strong, independent woman with a lot of names, like Daenerys Targaryen.
Yeah.
She has how many names? So what does Gunny mean?
Gunnery
Gunny
sergeant.
like Gunnery sergeant. Okay, all right. I didn't know that. So
Which
a lot
is
of
her rank
like-
in the Marines.
Yeah, in the Marines, a gunnery
Is,
sergeant
yeah.
is like the one he's the platoon sergeant, the highest ranking not officer.
If you're an enlisted person, you are basically God if you're a gunny.
Because
That's
anybody above that rank has a desk job. A gunnery sergeant is the highest ranking not officer
Active.
that is in the field. Which is
Okay,
why they
cool.
have their
And on the Marine ships, she would be the person operating the weapons.
No.
Yes.
She's a Marine on the ground, right? Is she?
Right,
I
but
don't know.
A
Marine-
gunnery sergeant doesn't operate the guns.
Well, I don't know what a gunnery sergeant is in real life, honestly, but I do know that I see. I don't want to ruin anything.
Okay,
but
that's fine.
when
That's
she
fine.
she
knows how to
owns that
shoot.
rank.
She knows how to shoot the guns too.
She knows how to make the things go
asserts
boom.
that position.
Right on. I'm glad to. I haven't seen or heard that yet, but I'm looking forward to it because Bobby's awesome.
I'm sorry, John. I'm
Yeah,
trying.
No, Bobby, I went on quite a journey with Bobby in this season. I'm sort of ashamed to say that I made a wrong call on who she was off the top of the season because she seemed very much like a nationalist fanatic, and I wasn't entirely.
That's
Yeah,
okay though.
I wasn't entirely sure that I was gonna like her, and then bit by bit, she just became, I'm going to be saying this a lot, but one of my favorites. And then going back to watch it a second time, I, love even her early stuff because what's inside of her at that point. So.
You do, and that's why her arc over the season, she's like, in the notes I wrote, she is a warrior and a patriot, but she turns against her own nation in order to stop a war. which are like, she's running counter to maybe the two biggest labels that have been applied to her character through the narrative. She's a fighter, and she's all about Mars.
The brainwashing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, who is it?
And
Captain Martin.
Martin. Yeah.
Yeah.
She suffers a betrayal of everything that she holds dear. That was her group. That was her men that were sacrificed on Ganymede for basically what turned out to be a commercial, an ad, for a sales pitch
on them. And then they tried to throw one of her men under the bus for it.
That scene.
That was when she just said no.
Yeah, that scene broke my heart when she realizes that they're throwing him under the bus, and then when she, unloads on her superior back in her room. I mean, and at that point, I was just bawling for her. And that's not even the worst of it, and then she finds out. Exactly what they were up to, and it's like, you guys took one of your most loyal people and just completely used her.
Exactly. And she's lucky to be alive, because there really shouldn't have been any survivors. She's just because of her where she was and the luck of the draw that there were any survivors from that encounter with the Caliban soldier. So, and then she thinks she's crazy, and people are, her superiors are telling her she's crazy. They're gaslighting her. You didn't see what you think you saw. That's ridiculous, but she saw what she saw. And then in the end, she couldn't lie. It was her code of honor would just not let her lie. If it was not just for, her men, the people that she was responsible for, she could not lie and disgrace their memory. So,
and it's one of the most thrilling parts of the season when she runs to the embassy. That's the moment when everything sort of turned in my head. I mean, I was growing to really love her character before that, but it's like, this is where this arc was headed the whole time. You had me fooled, it's really so great.
And then she ends up with Christian, and you're like, yeah.
Yay!
Oh, they're such a power.
Can we jump ahead and talk about how funny the three of them are together?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Team ABC, you mean?
Yeah, because once they get onto Mao's ship, I thought the show had turned into a comedy hour.
Yeah,
because Bobby goes straight for the cucumbers, and she looks so happy, and she's like, "You want to try it?" And then Christian is, when Mao comes in, she's like, just cut the bullshit,
right?
And then when they come back to the scene, even Mao gets in on the comedy. He's like, "You even arrested my brother. He's a monk." It's like, so before the scene turns ultra dramatic, it's just the funniest thing in the world. And I did not see that coming.
Yeah. And you can tell on the flight up that Christian really, really hates space travel. And she's just there in the corner, just like, distract me, tell me something. And then she's like, shut up.
Yep.
It was just one of the funniest things to see those three interacting together, and it was a great dynamic.
And the way Cotillard and Bobby kept bouncing off each other, like, my IQ tested too high to be a Marine. Your morals tested low enough to be a spy.
Yep. It was great.
Man. There was dick measuring going on there. Yeah.
Yeah, but they figured it out eventually.
Yeah. Absolutely, and he was.
Then when she says you've been shot, and he's like, "Oh, that's disappointing."
Oh yeah, Cotillard is a great character.
He's got a couple more good quotes yet to come.
Yeah, and Bobby was so surprised when he was, they're on Mao's ship, and they're in a tight spot, and I brought your power, I brought your armor.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, what? like kid in a can. What? I can't believe you remembered to pack, you know?
Yeah.
So her wardrobe, I think it was he packed her wardrobe for her, and it was
in the books
armor.
it's labeled like formal wear or something like that. That's how they snuck it on the ship. It's great. But I mean that whole
sorry, go ahead, Courtney.
No, well, the whole interaction on Mal's ship, it really just came down to loyalty. And, you know, Coach Yar is very much like Amos. He's all about survival. He's a tough guy. But he even says in this season, like, it's nice to be fighting for the good guys for once. And, you know, Amos alludes to that sometimes too. Like, I just want to make sure we're on the right team. And so it matters to them who they're fighting for, even though they're willing to murder people to do it. And Bobby and Kotyar are very loyal to Avarsala, which is not the case with Mal's team. I mean, you see them defect left and right. They're like, this has nothing to do with us. We're not willing to die for it.
Yeah, like the guy that's trying to stop Bobby from getting to her armor.
He's just an electrician,
dude. Can you beat me up a little bit?
I'm an electrician.
Shove me in a locker somewhere, you know, make it look good.
A little bit, yeah. Whereas,
but before he dives in, he's light unless I've severely misjudged the situation.
Right. It was so perfect. You know, he's just this guy with his finger up here, like the little Dutch boy holding his finger in the dike. Just like, hey, he doesn't. He's got like his finger and like maybe a wrench, and that's about it. And you know, you can tell he's not. You can tell he's a tech guy. You know, he's just there to fix the Wi-Fi, and you know, he's bearing down. This Martian Marine is bearing down on him, and he knows what she's capable of with her bare hands.
Oh, how funny is it when the two guys with guns try to stop her, and there's no ammo in her gun in her armor, so she's just like, oh well, and knocks them both out.
Right. Oops. She's like, oops. Yeah, there was a lot of scenes that were just, you know, there was a lot of comic relief in this series. This
especially you're on Mal's ship, like that's some of the highlight of the season to me, because Kotyar has that moment where he's like thinks he's probably gonna die, and he tells Officer Al, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this because I don't owe you anything. I owe your son, and he would want his mother to live. You know, I mean, that's a powerful moment.
To sell her out, and he doesn't do it. He could have very easily just handed her over, and you know, those guys probably would have let him walk. You know,
Mal would have hired him. What are you talking about? You know, that's because he doesn't care about loyalty either. You know, it's all it's what comes down to, you know, what he knows he can, you know, outspend anybody in the system. You know, or you know, have you. What was that procedure where all the scientists underwent where they have their
magnet over their head?
Yeah, they're basically all becomes sociopaths. You know, no empathy, no human empathy anymore, and that's basically Protogen in a nutshell. Yeah, there it is.
Writing stuff on their fit.
Right, Bernie's got it back there with the
Yeah, how creepy is Cortazar? And there's in the books, he has such a compelling backstory, and he's such an empathetic character until he has that procedure done to him. He takes care of his dying mother. He grows up on basic. He's poor. He's trying to survive. He's trying to thrive and be the best scientist that he can, and he gets this dream job, and you're so happy for him because he's had so much crap happen to him in his life, they do it essentially without even his consent, and then all of a sudden from that point forward he
doesn't care. He has
it's all about the science, and you hear him on the show speak about his mother dying, and he's like, well, seems like, you know, it was a pretty good way to die. But
she didn't know.
He was suffering that entire time. He was caring for her when she couldn't go to the toilet by herself. And, you know, he was like this lovely, wonderful, caring son. And one wave of a magnetic wand, and all of a sudden,
he's a robot.
He loses.
Yeah, and Amos, that's a big mirror up for Amos, to see someone like that and know that they have no moral compass anymore, and he knows
he tries to tempt Amos with it, and when they have that conversation, and
right, I think it's a really dark time for Amos, because he sees but by the grace of having someone in his life from an early age that just never gave up on him, one person, or was that moral compass for him when he didn't know what was the right thing to do. He knew they were a good person and would lead him in the right direction. So, and just to say, without that, he knows good and well that that's exactly the kind of person that he would be. Because,
and then he has that
he would have no empathy.
He has that conversation with Alex later in the season where Alex says something about, aren't you afraid? And Amos says, I haven't been afraid since I was 5 years old. And Alex says, well, I wish I didn't have to be afraid. And Amos says, no.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. No, and you get little snippets, in conversation, especially I think with Prax in this season, you get a window into some of what's alluded to in the churn and in Amos's backstory, where he's talking about what can happen when a bully and takes advantage of a little girl lost, and he puts her into trafficking, and the things that happen to her, and then when they have a child, those kids you just don't want to know because it's bad. So right. And you just gotta see the way that he's talking about it, that he was one of those kids that, was never, that was the life that he had before he became Amos Burton. That, in Baltimore. Read the churn, right. Guys, read it.
I want to circle back to that here in a second, but we've been going for about an hour. And once we've been going for about an hour, I always remind myself to ask everybody, hey, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. If you've been here for the last hour, hey, you've gotten something out of it. You ought to at least subscribe, and make sure you come back in 2 weeks when we do the season 3 review.
That's going to be so good.
Also,
listen, you shippers, hit the like.
Hey, yeah. Thank you, Bernie.
Smash it. Smash it like Eros smashed into Venus.
She is ruthless, so don't mess with Bernie. I need to shout out my patron, Ridiculous Ed Tollett. Ed, keeping it real, keeping the lights on over here at the channel. We appreciate you, buddy. He's here. He's driving home right now. He said in the chat he just got off work and he's driving home, so he may not be talking, but I know you're listening, buddy. And,
hi, Sean.
Always want to thank you for your support. And I will also say that, yes, 2 weeks from today, we will be doing a season 3 recap. I'm going to keep all night open for that because I might go for 7 hours. I don't know.
Wow.
I'd probably not. Don't hold me to no 7 hours, folks.
Oh, jeez. Marathon.
Oh, we'd have to do it in shift.
I'm not coming for
I'm a smoker. I would have to leave at some point just to have a cigarette because you don't want to see me after it's been 4 hours without a cigarette. I'm sorry. But yeah, and then next week, as I said earlier, we've got Aziz Al-Dori of History of Westeros fame going to be the guest on I Know That Nerd. So we'll just have a good couple-hour conversation, me and Aziz, next week. And I hope you all will join me for that. Aziz is probably like my fandom crush, man crush.
Aww.
Oh boy.
Like when I... Well, tune in next week and you'll hear some of the praise. You will hear some of the praise I heap upon Aziz.
And if you're sexual tension,
and if you haven't listened to the one I did with Ashea, who is his podcast partner and real life partner,
Ashea is the best.
Ashea is the best.
Ashea is my girl.
And I did, and I Know That Nerd with her, and it was fantastic. So you can go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. And yeah, so that's that. So with that out of the way, let's get back to the Expanse. We were talking about Amos and something. I don't remember. Sorry.
I was
his backstory.
I was saying to Nessie a few days ago, I went from being afraid of Amos in the first season to being afraid for Amos this year.
Right. Well, there's only three types of people. Yeah, there's only three types of people in Amos's world, right? There's bad people, there's people that you listen to, and there's people that you protect.
Well, that would be three, so I'm just
people
saying.
Like follow or something, something like that. Yeah, he said that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah,
he would be a good guy to have in your corner for sure.
Yeah.
And Alex was offended that he thought he needed his protection.
You know, speaking for the male of the species, you know, there's something to be said for Alex reacting that way. Good, bad, or indifferent, it seems pretty understandable and natural. Being emasculated is not a pleasant experience for anyone. And, you know, for males. But that's good storytelling that Alex feels that way. Because a lot of men would feel that way. Like, you know, I don't want you to have to fight for me. Well, but Amos is very matter of fact about, well, some people need it.
It's three types of people in this world. Bad ones, the ones you follow, and the ones you protect. That's exactly what he said. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I worry about him because he's innocent. He's like got this innocence about him, but he's also like, you know, he would break your neck in 2 seconds and not even think about it. So it's like he's like this contradictory character. I don't know. And sometimes he's almost robotic. Like I didn't read the book, so I don't know what's going on with him or anything. But then I feel like Holden kind of takes over a little bit. Like there comes a point in this season where he just has zero fucks to give anymore. Like, you know, first of all, he comes and he gets, you know, the cancer treatment or whatever. But even further after that, I feel like there's this one point where didn't he blow up a ship? Didn't he have to? He
had to blow up that relief ship on Eros.
The French doctors.
I feel like that's
the Marasmus.
That's his big turning point in the season. I feel everything snowballs from that.
Yeah, at that point.
Yeah, he's able to talk himself into doing each of those things after that, whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm. It gets easier and easier and easier to make those, you know, gray decisions. And and Naomi sees that. You know, Naomi's is like his anchor point and saying his Jiminy Cricket on the shoulder for this season, saying, you know, think about what you're doing. And, you know, she just sees that it's not Holden is not Holden. You know, it really starts to fray. He becomes more kind of like Miller in a way.
Exactly.
Well,
especially in the books.
Yeah, he becomes obsessed and starts, you know, jousting with windmills again. You know,
and it becomes a huge point of contention between him and Naomi. I mean, they split up over it in the books, and you know, he quits on Fred Johnson. That's how he ends up taking the job for Prax. I mean, he goes completely off the rails, and he becomes exactly like Miller. And then
but quitting with Fred was probably one of the best things that he did, one of the best decisions he did, because he got to be his own man again, and he and the rest of the guys, they all become equal partners, you know, on the ship. So you know, it's kind of a turning point. Yeah, it's kind of a legitimate salvage. Yeah, it kind of, you know, is a turning point as far as the dynamics of the crew, that they really kind of gel as a family. You know, they're all in it together. Just, you know, not just he's the captain because they want him to be the captain, not just because he was the guy flying, you know, in charge when they left the Cant.
No, they respect him. I see if there's one point of the show that I think that might need some help, and it doesn't actually even need it in the show at all at this point, is romance. Like, I don't know, sometimes like the sex scenes that what are the only Naomi and Holden so far a couple times have, but it's always like weird timing, and people just died, and the shit just went down, and you're kind of like, I don't know, the romantic in me is like, I don't buy that, you know what I mean? But I think that they do well. The friendship that these guys have made together.
Right.
I think that definitely works. The romance, I think they just threw it in there just to have some, tits in there. You know what I mean? I mean, I can't. It's kind of take it or leave it. I don't really. Even though he says, "Oh, I want you to meet this person," I don't necessarily buy their romance. Maybe because there's a whole bunch of shit going on. The end of the world. But
this season they're kind of at odds. But
yeah,
it's ironic that you said that it seems to happen at weird times, because there is a very relatable point in the books where it says that Naomi knows him well enough to know that, like, sex can be different things. It can be comfort, it can be stress relief, and she understands him well enough to know when he needs that, and it's not always because they're staring into each other's eyes and everything is so lovey-dovey. Sometimes she knows that he needs that release to, like, go back about being himself and running the ship, so
it's a different attitude that they seem to have.
But it does happen
release.
at odd times.
What are we talking about her release? I mean, why are we talking about who gives a shit about him?
Trust me, Naomi is getting hers. She is getting hers.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, I didn't read the books. I don't know.
I think she's happy.
I mean, even with just having watched this season, I mean, I actually found it kind of refreshing the way it happens in the first episode, because normally you'd expect, the cliche would be that this is something that's built up over time, like a whole will they, won't they? But they share this very tender, intimate moment when they're out in space together.
When there was nobody but them,
And then they come back on the ship and they're undressing each other, and it's just like, it just happens. And, I think it was very, sort of real in a sense. It's, it just felt like something that just happened, and it was less a cliche, basically.
And Alex and Amos had a bet,
and it wasn't. They're being so slick.
And then it's hysterical.
That was. And he's like, instead of hitting him, he gives him the little
about when it happened. See.
It wasn't that it happened.
Alex is like,
it wasn't
really. Oh my god, guys!
It was when it happened, not that it happened or not. It's just like,
I love the way it drops, because first it's exactly what you expect. Because Amos just kind of grimly looks up. He's like, "How long has this been going on?" And you think he's asking because they don't know that he's going to be mad, but it's just all about the bet. I love it.
It's just deadpan Amos. Yeah.
Epic. It was so perfect.
Like, I told you.
And that's the attitude that they have, that it's no big thing, to anybody else.
But the best thing is what follows when I'm glad this isn't a problem for him. It's like, nah, Naomi's like a sister to me.
I beg her.
I do it.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, if the opportunity presented itself, but I'm happy
I wouldn't
for you.
throw her out of bed for eating crackers. Yeah.
Unless you get crumbs on my side. No, screw that.
So John, what did you think was in the safe? Like, what did you, when they were like trying to open that thing up, like, what did you know all along what the fuck was in there? Like, I just did. I was like, why are they opening that? We know what it is. Remember when they took the core out, and it was, I think the first episode, Amos was trying to open it.
Yeah, episode 1.
Protomolecule.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess I just sort of naturally assumed it was the
protomolecule.
It made sense.
I thought it was going to be candy bars.
Because,
well, why? I don't know why.
That was what they were transporting on the Anubis. That was the whole point of the Anubis, was to transport that sample. And Julie didn't have it in the hotel room. So
this is what caused the rift between Naomi and Holden. This whole her hiding
the big lie, the big lie, secret.
It's all tied together. Yeah, that was a big secret.
She reveals
right, and it starts right there in episode 1. where they're just keeping things from they're keeping things from each other.
Yeah, and see,
the whole season.
Okay, so like season 1, Naomi, I found her to be, forgive me, somewhat uninteresting because she's her moral compass points pretty true north, and
right.
So forgive me if I find that somewhat interesting. But season 2, Naomi, where she's like, she's holding back things from Amos, and Amos consistent enough that he starts to turn away from her, and she's holding things back from Holden, and she's lying to people, and being deceptive, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm all on board with this character now, because she's doing these morally questionable things, but she's doing it for what she genuinely believes to be good reasons.
Good reasons.
Yeah.
See, and that's why actually I almost feel like I have the opposite reaction to her character season by season, because it almost seemed like I wasn't entirely sure if I could trust her last season. And this season, she may be being deceptive to Holden and the crew, but she's doing it for reasons that she believes are the best for her people. So in a sense, I view her as, more morally straight, this year. So
she's also got some shade in her past.
Right. We get a little bit of Naomi's backstory. She never really talks about it, even to, the people she's closest to. And then this random person that she just met, Prax, and she opens up to him about something that is very personal to her.
Oh yeah, about her son, and she mentioned that brought up Fred Johnson. She said, Fred Johnson, when I ask you, I'm going to give you a name, and you're not going to ask any questions, and you're going to find this person. Mm-hmm. And so I'm assuming that's got to be the kid.
God, I forgot.
That's going to be her son.
Yeah.
But it took me back when she, told that to Prax, because they just came so out of the blue.
And it's so deeply personal, but it's what he needed to hear in that moment, or didn't. But
he's not ready to hear it.
He's not ready to.
Did you have a name for that?
Still has hope.
Nessie, did you have a name for that blue person, the Blue Man Group, the Tobias Fouquet, the protomolecule person on? I know I'm going off. Nobody knows any of that. Maybe one person got those jokes.
The name for the child.
I love the Blue Man Group. I saw him in New York.
Okay. Okay. You got that.
The Caliban. The Caliban soldier.
It's called a Caliban? Is that what he's called?
The Caliban. It was the Martian. That project was called Project Caliban. And it was to use the protomolecule to invent a super soldier. So that's what the whole Caliban's war is about. It's this creation and utilizing of the super soldier weapon.
So he's going to be called a Caliban. Okay, but I was wondering also why he didn't kill her. Like, he knew that she was alive. Like, maybe there is a little humanity in there still. I don't know.
Right. Well, he never attacked Holden until after, the monster didn't go after Holden until they attacked it first. It was just trying to hide, and
like
just hide and get away.
Like,
a child. It is a child in there, even no matter what's been done to it somewhere in its, in its consciousness. This is a child that's been experimented on, and it's made to do things that,
and the protomolecule
it never really asked for.
In general, tends to defend rather than attack. I mean, it only takes down things that it sees as a threat,
or something to like discover how it works.
Yes, that's
right. Right, just the molecule itself, but they were able to synthesize it. Yeah.
Okay, so
it deconstructs everything. It's so cool the way it does it. It's learning, so pleasing to the eye. Yeah.
So
takes it apart to learn how to put it back together.
I've got a trivia question I'm going to throw out. Chatters only. Chatters only. So I want to see who can get the answer first from those in the chat. So In the Belter language, aqua means water. We can recognize that. Aqua, agua, if in Spanish, aqua in Latin. So aqua. Caca means shit. So, what is aqua caca? First to get it right in the chat, we'll get a shout out. Okay, so I derailed the conversation again. It's what I do.
I don't think I want to know.
I'm certain.
Look at Bertie. Oh my God, her face.
I'm sure.
You had this look of horror.
No, I'm trying to think now. In season 1,
I don't know that it's
I
ever
watched too much
on the show. I learned it.
I'm not talking about the question. I'm talking about. I'm thinking about something completely different.
Right,
I'm in my own world. Was season 1? What did they talk about mushrooms? Was there, or is that a different show completely that I'm thinking? I watched too much TV.
We've got a winner already. Pedar Ruan.
No,
You're right, my friend. It is coffee.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
You must not drink much coffee.
Gets you moving.
Yeah, it
Oh my God.
so to speak. Coffee is aqua caca, literally shit water.
But wasn't there someone eating a mushroom out of the wall? Like a mushroom, like how it says, how it decomposes things and put things like a fungus, the mushrooms. Was that this show or no? Am I thinking of a different show completely?
I don't remember anybody.
I don't remember any mushrooms.
It's possible. I haven't watched season 1 in a while.
Now when they were on Ganymede, it wasn't a mushroom. There were people that were on Ganymede that were eating the plants that were helping the air scrubbers.
Yeah.
That, they were starving, so they were just going through.
Okay, no, sorry. Continue on. I must be thinking of a completely different show then.
Maybe it tasted like mushrooms.
Maybe I took some before this stream.
Maybe I got some too.
I didn't, but no, I don't know. Okay, I just had some stupid theory that I just came up with, all the time. I was like, wait a minute. But I was, anyway. So what else are we going to talk about?
Okay, anything that's got to do with season 2. I mean, you guys, we've kept it going. We haven't even nobody's even said Diogo.
Yeah.
Nobody said that name at all.
Diogo. Well, how's he? That's amazing that he lived. First of all, we're all like, what?
Right,
Can I
when he got shot with the jump. Yeah.
Let me just say something, because this was a point that I forgot to bring up when we were talking about season 1. Mostly because I didn't want to sound stupid. But when they showed him with his uncle on the ship in season 1, I had no idea that this was the same kid that Miller busted. So I was like, why are we seeing this? It seemed to have almost nothing whatsoever to do with anything else. So I was very confused until he showed up this season and he started talking to Miller and he mentioned being thrown off the ship by his uncle. I'm like, oh shit, okay, now I get it.
Right. I mean, what an experience,
Yeah. But no, he was great to play off of Miller and also to humanize that the portion of the Belters who end up
rock hoppers.
Ultimately revolting, and so I really liked that element of it, and but yeah, his banter with Miller was really funny.
And ultimately, he's the one that brings Miller back to his Belter roots, because Miller all along has been, what do they call it? Welwala, where you're a traitor to your people. He grew up in the system, and he was dependent on the system his entire life, and he had that conversation with Semi, do you want to be a boot or the neck? And he chose to be the boot and get his paycheck from Earth. And he didn't really think of it or even embraced being the traitor, because he was getting a steady paycheck and he didn't really care about the common people. But he was surviving. Diogo's, when Diogo gives him a place to stay, where he uses the term us, and Diogo says, us who? And he says, us Belters. And that's the first that he really, acknowledges that, you know, he's still fighting for the belt.
Can I say that this portion of Miller's arc is what really sort of tricked me this season? Because I think I was saying this to Nessie last week, and she explained to me about how the books are actually structured, but because the last part of Miller's arc is, in season 2, when he starts to accept himself as a belter, it feels like the show is sort of setting up for the next phase of his arc, and it fooled me into thinking that it might continue on for at least some time, but then of course it doesn't. So, and then heartbreak ensues.
Wait a minute, what are you talking about? Did something happen to Miller? Did I forget?
Oh no!
He and Julie now flew off and lived happily ever after.
I don't think he ever planned on coming back. I think he knew he was going on there to die. Romeo and Juliet style, kind of Shakespearean.
Once that trigger mechanism was damaged, which I find to be a very TV contrivance, by the way. The show doesn't do it often, but I've got to hold my finger on the thing or it's going to blow up.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not what tipped me off that this was probably his farewell. It's the fact that he was all set to sacrifice himself, and then the whole thing turns and it seems like he no longer has the need to. Once you've brought a character to that place where they're going to give up their life, you're basically psyching the audience out so that when it happens the very next episode, it's heartbreaking, And so once he didn't die at the end of episode 4, I was like, oh shit, he's a goner.
He put Diogo first. He said, "Go kid, go
wait
get
a minute.
laid."
The fact that he didn't die means he's a goner. We're gonna dig into this at some point, John.
It's drama, Stephen. It's setting up the audience for thinking he's going to be okay.
I mean, if he had died in episode 4, wouldn't he be a goner then too?
Okay, now you're just being difficult.
He's trolling you. He's trolling you, John.
If Holden hadn't blown up that ship, then he might have been okay. But I don't know. I just think that he just never was gonna. I think he thought that he was gonna find Julie in there. For some reason, he knew it. I don't know. There's some kind of weird thing going on there between those two, like some kind of soulmates, even though they never met. She was seeing him she never even met him before. So
I desperately, I'm not giving up hope that I'm going to find out more about that connection of theirs, because there was definitely something going on. Because you could say that the protomolecule had something to do with Julie's side of it with seeing him, but he never had access to it, at least not, he wasn't infected or, anything like that. So it's strange that, he was also seeing her, and it wasn't just him hallucinating, because she says something to him in the first episode, you belong with me, that she then ends up saying in episode 5. And also the fact that she would see this guy who she previously had no connection to whatsoever. I'm going to be racking my brain trying to figure that one out. So
part of me
what sealed it for me was when he went back to, the blue whatever, and, he's dragging his little cart with him. He's got his little friend with him, and the protomolecules are all around like the fireflies, and they form the finch, the finch from that was seeing.
Oh, the little bird that he saw at Julie's. Yes.
Right. He would always see that finch at Julie's apartment, and then as he's approaching her, he sees the finch. So there's definitely a connection between Julie and Miller, and whether it's the molecule, like bringing them together across space and time. We know that it communicates with one another across vast distances, so it can reach out and touch if it enhances like psychic abilities or, consciousness.
Maybe,
because,
but
Julie's been taken apart and put back together again.
Yeah, because and that's what I'm trying to get to, because it's clear in that moment that something of Julie Mao is still there.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Despite having, turned into a dead girl in a shower some time ago, she is recreated by the protomolecule in some
Her
way.
nipples just didn't come back.
Yeah, and that's fine, whatever, She
Who needs them?
She has no need for lactating at this point, so
it's because they hadn't made the move to Amazon yet.
Right. But I will say this, like, it speaks to the communal nature of the human creature, that, like, I'm scared. There is a person here who's been comforting to me. So the way they latched on to each other, because, like, he has some idea who she is, but Miller has fallen in love with her principles, not with her person. You know what I mean? And she doesn't even know who this guy is, but she's deeply scared and hold my hand and don't let me be alone in this scary moment. It's a very, very human thing. And that's something that a lot of sci-fi loses sometimes, is that connection to the truly human elements of life.
Well, Miller saved her.
The protomolecule infects her, but she infects the protomolecule. And so that bit of her that he recognizes because he's come to know her so well, that's saying, can't catch the racer back and, can't beat me. And he knows that that's her speaking, that she thinks she's racing home to Earth. And he convinces her to change course to save Earth. So in some ways, he saves Earth, but she really is very much a part of that too.
And I do want to say this, I haven't spent as much time thinking about the mythology as I would like to, but there is definitely something to the fact that the two lovers come together on Eros and make their way to Venus.
Yeah.
There's something to that,
They're the next Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
Right.
God, I love that scene so much. Sorry.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It is. It's so beautiful. I mean,
it's emotionally heart-wrenching. It's fabulous.
It's very, very Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, for sure.
He. Go ahead.
Sorry. It's just that there's a lot of me that felt like all the time he was pursuing her, that it was very kind of like creepy, stalkerish. But when he finally is presented with her, it's non-sexual until the kiss at the very, very end. It's completely non-sexual. He keeps calling her kid. He just wants to hold her hand and comfort her. He sees her as this pure, beautiful person that he, could worship this concept, but this ideal, but he doesn't like check her out and she's laying there naked. He goes straight to her face. He holds her hand. He calls her kid. It's just,
there's your romance, Bernie.
Yeah, creepy as an old man detective hunting down a young hottie could potentially be.
That part was done better, but I was like, oh, he doesn't have his helmet on for an awful long time right now. That was me thinking.
Oh,
but
he wasn't planning on putting him back on.
No,
he drank the poison at that point.
No, he was gonna go down with her.
And the alarm wasn't beeping anymore, and he took his helmet off. I'm like, all right, they're gonna just get into the romance. But I thought that scene was done much better than the Holden Naomi scenes for sure. Thought it was sweet. Yeah. I was so sad. It was.
Yeah.
It was.
It's one of those truly like it's one of those landmark moments in the show. And as you say, John, when we were talking before the stream, it feels like that's the end of part one of the season.
Yeah, the season to me very much feels like it's in two parts. You have the first 5 episodes, and then the second half is the last 7. Obviously there's stuff set up in that first part that pay off later in the season. But that's why I don't know if I would call them two separate seasons, but it's definitely a 2-part season.
Right.
Well, it's the way that they separated them is you have overlap from the books. If from the story itself is Miller's arc, and Miller and Julie end at the end of book 1, so they don't even proceed into book 2. But for the storyline, the plot line, things make sense in the show. They just continued that into season 2. So you do have some overlap,
which is good because I think that and I'm sure the way it unfolds in the book is great, and I'm planning on reading the book, and I'm actually really excited by the prospect of the book ending that way, because I think it's a great ending. But yet at the same time, it's also there's something what's the word I'm looking for? Not cliche, because I wouldn't call it cliche, but
ubiquitous.
Yeah,
polyglottal.
We got there.
But it does follow a sort of rhythm of the kind of ending you might expect from a story like this. But the fact that season 1 ends with him actually making it off of Eros was unexpected to me. I thought he was a dead man walking throughout the season, because that's kind of what it felt like his arc was. But then to have him, still in it for the first few episodes of this season, it felt like, again, it's just, setting up your expectations and then sort of turning it on its head. And then, of course, delivering the blow of taking him away 5 episodes.
Well, it wasn't rushed. Go ahead.
No. He's the biggest name on the show, biggest actor, Thomas Jane. The other one, I don't mean just completely, but Jared Harris is also another excellent actor that was on the show.
I love him. I mean, I hate him, but as a performance, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I never saw him do it before, and I thought Jared Harris is just anything he does, he just knocks out of the park. So Dawes, the character Dawes.
And as long as we're mentioning, big names, what I really love, and I wrote this down in our outline. I love that starting with episode 6, there's 2 things about the opening credits that are notable. One is that there's no longer a cold open, so there's a clear separation between the first 5 and the last 7, and also the fact that even though Thomas Jane is no longer in the cast, they don't actually remove his spot, so to speak. His name is just removed. So it's a way of honoring, him even throughout the rest of the episodes, which I really found touching. So.
You know what? There was also, I think, I'm thinking of The Seventh Man is what I'm looking at my page here, which is the 7th episode. And the red snowflakes, out of blood.
Oh, they were.
That was crazy.
Oh, yeah,
cool.
I saw that, and I was like, oh, that visual was just so perfect.
Game of Thrones should have done that.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
That was really cool, right?
Well, that's one thing that I've liked about. Go ahead, Court.
No, you do it.
Okay, well, I was going to say one thing that I've really talking about how we've had the overlaps from, how they're doing the plots. I think it's better. The show did it better because they're not rushing any of these. They're not, rushing any of these character arcs. They're letting them play out the way they play out. It seems very natural to just continue it into the next season just because the season ended, we don't have to end it with, the way the book did, but we're just going to stretch it off a little bit more, still get it out there, to tell the story correctly.
Even if there's overlap with the different elements of the books, it's, obviously I haven't read the book, so I might be talking nonsense, but one of the things that I appreciated on the second viewing as well is that even Bobby and the Marines have a nice character arc that spreads throughout those early episodes, and then it doesn't really move on to the next phase until after episode 5. But it's a great character journey with her and her teammates, which
who are we?
Yeah.
Who are we?
We're dead ones on Ganymede. That's who we are.
Yeah.
Because not one of them makes it off but her, you know?
It's brutal.
Right.
And probably no one was supposed to make it off. It's probably just a testament to how tough she is that she even survived that, because there was probably not supposed to be any survivors. There were probably not supposed to be any witnesses.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's like he recognized her or something. I don't know. What's his name? Has a couple sons and another daughter, they were saying. So
it was clear to me the first time I watched it, but they were watching with that agricultural drone. They were watching the weapons test on Ganymede, and they chose to activate the head bomb in that particular unit. And they probably thought, I don't know if they thought it would kill Bobby or if they wanted to keep her alive to be a witness and say, you know, somebody who could be there and say what happened. So the
wasn't it on a timer? I thought.
No, I'm pretty sure
the chest bomb.
Yeah,
the fail safe that they embed in the soldier that was like the one that got on the ship ripped it out.
Literally ripped it out of its own chest.
Ripped it out and threw it out the hole. So it was like the fail safe. If the creature got away from them, or they got where they couldn't control it, they could just click a button and no more problem. Except you spray the blue goo everywhere and gets on everything. So hard to clean.
I thought it was somehow triggered internally, that it wasn't necessarily by a button, but I could be wrong.
Well, it could have been, but it was a fail safe.
Yes.
It
But wasn't there something where
if the creature took too much damage, what would kick in would be like the adrenaline would kick in and it would trigger.
That's exactly what it was, Nessie. That's exactly what.
Yeah, if it took too much damage,
it wasn't
would
like they decided
self-destruct.
to save her by pressing the button. It was a self-destruct.
But that's how it worked. So I'm sure there was some type of fail safe built into it to, because you wouldn't want one of those running loose, out of the handler's control. So because it could turn on the handlers just as easily, and did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they had to keep it in, when that anesthetized box broke open. All hell broke loose up in there.
All right, guys. Well, I'll tell you what, we've been going for an hour and 45. I know a couple of you have lives beyond live streaming. So at least a couple of you I know have asked me to try to keep this at 2 hours. So we're going to try to wrap this up pretty quickly. So gather if there's anything else you want to talk about. I'll give you guys a second to bring that up. I just want to make sure I touch on one last character because I haven't had a chance much to talk about Prax, who is, Bobby is amazing, but Prax is a character that I deeply love. And he, like, as Amos, big surprise, I'm talking about Prax, but in the first word out of my mouth is Amos. Amos has difficult with Naomi this season, he can't trust her the way he used to because of things. And he's growing closer to Prax because he's seeing that Prax has a highly developed morality and is willing to make sacrifices for the greater good, which is a common Belter trait. I mean, again, I'm a Belter, but Prax is maybe not even my favorite new character from the season, but I do love his interaction with Amos because they're so different, yet on some level they understand each other and they have something that the other needs.
All right. That scene where Prax and Amos are talking together and Prax is just really opening up about he felt like when the dome went down and he thought his daughter was dead, that it was almost a relief.
Yeah.
That was some really, really hard stuff to hear, but it was very honest. And Amos was like, almost like, check yourself, dude. Just kind of brought him back. He's like, and it was the wrong thing. Prax was like, and that was wrong. So, he sees that in Prax that he is not willing to give up on his child, which, Amos growing up the way that he did, to see someone that would just have that relationship with a defenseless child is it just hits him, it just touches him.
Yeah, he says good reason.
And Padar mentions this moment, which, is one of the funnier lines to me that that Holden gets out, even though it's horrible. But it's one of those break the tension things. The way he says, "Don't talk down to me, plant guy." It's it's cruel in a way. So it's not funny, but I couldn't help but laugh.
Oh, it's funny.
You want to hear? Oh my goodness, the funniest Prax moment. So in Here There Be Dragons at the end when he shoots the scientist and he wasn't supposed to shoot and Amos shouldn't have even given him a gun. In the books, it is hilarious because Prax has never held a gun in his life, right? And so he thinks that in the movies, when you cock the gun is when people start talking and people start listening and doing what you say. So he walks in thinking he's all tough and he cocks the gun and then everybody starts shooting and it turns into a total shitstorm. And he is just like completely blown away because that was not what he expected. He expected to cock the gun and everybody was going to start listening to him and doing what he said. Instead of everybody was going to start shooting back. And so there's a long time where he has to earn back his privilege to be armed because the Rosie crew is pissed because they wanted to go in and solve things as peacefully as possible. And Prax goes in like a hard ass and cocks the gun to the scientist. And the whole world explodes. And he's like completely befuddled. Like, wait a minute. This is not the way it goes in the movie.
Exactly.
Can't trust Hollywood.
It takes him a few episodes before he really gets his confidence back. And then we see in the season finale where he comes at them. They're willing to kill Holden by evacuating the cargo bay. And Prax asserts that, it's going after its food source. And if we provide an alternate food source, we can lure it out instead of chase it out. And that, like, you really see him come back into knowing that he does have something to offer the team. It's not that he's the hard ass. We have a hard ass already. It's not, that he's a good shot because he's not, but he is a super smart scientist. And so he contributes in his own way at the very end of the season. And that's like a major progression for him.
Yeah.
Right. And then he does his spacewalk out there and you wonder, like, he's never been outside in the vacuum. This is his first trip in the vacuum. He's got to hold a bomb in one hand and pull out this nuclear core. And oh, by the way,
look the monster in the eyes, trying to find some semblance of his daughter in there. And I mean,
is it or isn't it? And he doesn't know. He doesn't know even at the very end if that is his daughter that's been, transformed into this creature. And, he's got to toss the core out and you see it. And you just see the hand just trying to grasp that, that ball, just like a toy, and all it wants to do is eat.
My precious. Sorry.
Yeah, it kind of, a little, very Gollum-like,
I have a question for you guys. Who smokes more cigarettes, Christian or Drummer? Drummer.
That is a hard call. That is a hard call. The choosing. No, I think Avasarala has probably smoked quite a few in her days.
That they're even still around that far in the future.
Oh, there's something. There's something out there. They're smoking something up there. And that's probably one of her vices. It's like she's got to go out and sneak one so that she doesn't. Yeah, she doesn't like accidentally cause a war.
The best shots of her when she's laying on that roof, it's like instant facelift. You know, this is like a trick girls do when they take pictures of themselves. They lay down and all your skin is nice and smooth.
Does that work?
Lay down and put your phone up here. Works perfect. No,
great for your face, not so much for, you know.
She looks amazing in all those shots. I'm always like, oh my God, like the lighting is good and she's laying down and the way they place her dress. Like she is just the way she, everything about her is so
her
perfect,
entire wardrobe is,
she's
incredible.
It's like a queen. She's really like a queen.
But she knows she has to project that role. I mean, she's going into this, you know, powerful environment, and
we could do an episode just on her costumes for the whole season.
I really
that necklace.
There's
the necklace. Oh my God, that was gorgeous. When she's in the meeting with the Martians, that jeweled collar that she has. You just look at this woman and say, this is an empress right here. She's not a queen. She is an empress. And it's just amazing. Look at John.
But her husband calls it putting the mask on because he realizes that that's not who she is all the time. That's who she has to be at work.
There's a rule of fashion where they say before you leave the house, take off an accessory because you probably put too many on, and always take one off. Except for her, she can put on like 50 fucking accessories, and she pulls it off like I don't know, like old necklaces, earrings.
Like a boss.
All this embroidery, like a boss. I never saw anything like it. It's just amazing. The textiles.
Who dresses her?
Well,
Who dresses that woman?
That's the only fun the costume designer has is her, really.
Right, because everything else is a jumpsuit. A jumpsuit. Yeah. So the wardrobe budget is concentrated just on her. It's like go to town here, you know.
For sure.
Bust out all the take out all the stops.
So, John, are you going to start season 3 tonight or what?
I will be. If I can just interject, what I wanted to mention was I talked a little bit about, you know, how much I liked her this season, but what and I can never, you know, remember her name because it's hard to pronounce, but the actress who plays Avasarala, just the material she had to work with this season was incredible, because in a way I felt like in season 1, even though, you know, I went on a journey with her of sort of realizing that, you know, she was playing something that was a lot more complex than what it initially appeared. I couldn't help feeling it was still playing something that was sort of in that actress's wheelhouse. This year, she just got to do so much, and, you know, it's such a phenomenal role, you know, and I was just insanely impressed. And, you know, all her stuff, you know, back and forth with all of her co-stars, but we haven't really talked about, what's his name? You know, the guy who
Aaron Wright.
So memorable.
Aaron Wright.
Aaron Wright.
Oh, Salvarala, whatever the heck his name. What's his name? His name is
Sadavir. Aaron Wright.
Yeah, the sort of cat and mouse game. I think one of my absolute favorite moments of the season is when he basically comes groveling to her, because it's just like, because he really has no idea that she's got him all figured out.
And can't believe it.
Yeah, and you look on his face when he's like, "You've known for a while," and it's just, you know,
it's like, yeah, of course I have.
It's beautiful. I love it. And then, of course,
doesn't tell him out yet.
Yeah, and that he's such a dirtbag for his turn at the end. You know, although you have to admire, you know, sort of it as a chess move. He really goes all in. As despicable as it is. Yeah. You know.
All in is a poker move, not a chess move. I'm just saying.
Well, I don't know, Steven. Stop trolling me.
At one point, I thought he was going to kill himself because he was writing notes and he was talking to his son. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I think
so out of character for him.
I think he was thinking of it.
I think he has a moment.
That pill, like that pill that he took out, or whatever.
The liquid, the green.
That's what
the
he
liquid.
killed Martian Defense Minister Korshunov with.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Right.
And it wouldn't.
He was going to kill him. He was going to kill himself. He was going to kill that dude. I was like, oh my gosh.
And he even said, like, as Korshunov is dying, he even says, like, how it's genetically imprinted, basically for just him.
Yep. But we didn't know that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
so that twist.
That's
And
another
out loud.
Yeah.
That's another moment that sort of plays off of the cliches of, moments like this, because, the guy looks at the drink and he's like, no, it happened
3 hours ago.
3 hours ago. And then he takes a drink. So I love that. But yeah, that's a character that was done brilliantly this year. Because, you could look at him as sort of, your standard, politician, bad guy in season 1. And there's so much depth to his character this year. I was really impressed with him.
That actor always plays a bad guy, doesn't he? I feel like
I don't think I've seen him in anything else.
Yeah, he's always shady.
He plays a great politician, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And he is who we thought he was. There was that's this part of the middle where, he's so, after he's thrown himself, on her mercy, so to speak, it's like comes clean. He's really just trying to save his butt because, he thinks, well, maybe Avasarala will, put in a good word for me or help me, get through this or whatever. He's like, mm-mm.
But at the same time, that's such a human instinct to self-preservation. So as despicable as it is, you can understand it at the same time.
Right.
Well, he's a sociopath. He wouldn't think any different. Like, oh, of course she's going to stick up for me, And then he was like, oh shit. Like it didn't cross his mind,
Yeah.
But, Aaron, right now,
when
2020.
But when the conversation, when the call comes in, from Mal, though, I think that's when he sees it as his opportunity to set things up, set Avasarala up, because he wasn't taking his calls before then, Mal wasn't taking his calls. So,
Yeah.
And I think,
all in all, a brilliant season. Like, I was really impressed how they upped the ante in basically every department this season. The effects were better.
Oh, yeah.
The music was better. The camera work was better. The special effects were better. Heck, they even got helmets for Martian soldiers where you can see the actors' faces. So, I'm sure all the actors are happy about that too. And again, the new characters were interesting and diverse, and characters that had been around for a while got further depth and more layers. So all in all, I thought season 2 was a masterstroke coming off of season 1.
And it's just
really started
it up.
hitting their stride.
Yep, tons of setup for season 3, which is
Oh,
going to
yeah,
be
season 3.
even better.
Yeah, John, I can't wait for you to get to a certain point with a certain murdery snuggly boy.
Let me I just want to make sure I and get in a couple more points before we start.
Yes, absolutely.
One, I'll be completely honest, probably in the first couple episodes of this season, I was just a tiny bit concerned that I was not enjoying it as much as season 1. But I think that's because I had lived with season 1, having gone through it twice. And this season starts off on an entirely different note by starting off, with the Martians. But then we get to episode 5, and that was just like crushing for me.
Right.
It was Miller.
Oh, yeah.
But it's really, I'd say everything really solidified for me once it was the last few episodes of the season. And then on my second rewatch, I was just totally in love with everything.
Yeah.
It was great. And hold on, I know there was at least one other thing I was thinking. Oh yeah, going back to I don't want anybody to confirm or deny this because I just want to put it out there because this is my.
I'm going to confirm and deny.
Okay, cool. This is my thinking on this, and this is just probably me being in full denial. Okay, but I hold on to Miller's words of maybe we die. Or if we don't, that'll be interesting. And I'm just saying.
Okay, all I'm saying is the chance of surviving an impact on Venus are pretty low.
Yes, but the protomolecule, you don't know. There's
that's
so many.
Exactly how I was John. I was John. That's for sure. I'll tell you.
I'm not writing. And also, even though Thomas Jane's name was removed from the credits, that actress's name stayed up there throughout the entire rest of the season. Okay, so I'm not saying that means anything. I'm just saying that I'm not giving up hope.
I think you need to stop watching the credits so you don't get spoiled ahead of time on stuff.
He's trying to spoil himself.
You can't ask us not to spoil and then bring this stuff up. So
it's so hard.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize at first. I'm like, thank God I didn't spoil you because I would have felt really bad. I didn't realize for a long time. I was like, oh, shit.
Next time it'll be a lot easier because you'll be all caught up in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
and then it's like
I'm sorry.
Speculation for all of us.
Yeah.
I said then it'll just be speculation for all of us except Courtney. Courtney, I'm looking at you.
That is the plan going forward then.
I think I'm doing a pretty good job not ruining
You're doing fantastic. And anybody that says otherwise, I will fight them.
Yeah, no, you guys
like fun because he told me he's serious about spoilers.
I'm sorry.
He will unfriend you.
I'm even trying to control my face when you talk. I'm like, look away so I don't give it away. I
can't control my face when I'm with you.
Here's the thing. I'm so serious.
But I like it.
I'm so serious about spoilers that I actually got angry with my mom for looking up book spoilers of Game of Thrones. We're in season 4. Don't do it. Don't do it.
All right, guests. Any other thoughts about season 2? Something you just have to get out there? No, I'm not hearing anything. Again,
someone in the chat said vote Bernie, but I thought, they like me, but then I'm assuming Bernie Sanders.
That's probably true, but you know what? For our purposes, we'll just say vote for Bernie L. She's right there.
I'm right here. Write me in,
baby.
Right there.
Anyway, sorry.
Right, y'all,
I derailed.
That being said, so Nessie you work every other Sunday, which is why we have been doing this every 2 weeks. So come back in 2 weeks and we will have a season 3 review. And then the plan is 2 weeks after that to do a season 4 hype stream or with like speculation. So Courtney, I might not, you might just be here to like hide your face the whole time to not give spoilers to anybody.
No video.
We speculate over what's going on. And
I'll try to pop in as I can.
Every 3 minutes, you're like, I can neither confirm nor deny.
Well, I mean, there's
of course, I'd always love to have you on.
Yeah, we don't know where it's going to go. We know where it's going to go, but we just don't know how it's going to get there.
Yeah, and this is a meme that I started by accident, but it's going around now. In the upcoming House of the Dragon Game of Thrones sequel, I want to play Cregan Stark. Give me the Hour of the Wolf, y'all.
Oh my God!
Let me walk it. Let me roll into King's Landing. Let me roll up into King's Landing. Set people straight. Drop the mic and go home. That's what I want to do.
I want
one episode. That's all it takes.
Alaric
wouldn't be bad because I'll get to rub up against the Queen for a little bit. But
I hope that
Cregan is such a boss.
Alicent, Alaric, little fling. I like my romance. I'm sorry. Here I am again talking about romance.
It's all good.
That would be cool.
Maybe they'll get
that would be
Stephen
juicy.
Delaney to play it. Maybe they'll get Stephen Delaney to play Alaric.
Oh man, why you do this to me? Okay, so yeah, come back in 2 weeks, y'all, for the season 3 recap stream. It'll be like this, but with season 3, which is empirically the best season so far. Scientific measurements have been taken.
It's a mind blower.
Our whole dynamic is such that now I have to come back and say that I thought season 3 was the worst.
All right.
Maybe you will think that.
You can say what you say.
Then I'll tell you, no, John, the Earth is not flat.
Yeah. I don't think any person has ever said that, ever.
Okay, so this might actually be, the breaking point.
John, we've talked enough. There's a lot we agree on, but sometimes we do have big differences. But yeah, so and then again, next week also is Aziz on I Know That Nerd. I'm super looking forward to that one, y'all. Come watch me talk to one of the coolest people in the fandom.
You're talking to yourself?
Well, I do. Yeah, but I do that with the camera off. I'm talking to Aziz from History of Westeros.
That'll be a great one.
And that having been said, I want to thank my lovely panel of guests again. John, Nessie, Bernie, Courtney. You people are all great, and I look forward to having you back on in 2 weeks. To everybody that showed up in the chat, all the regulars, and then there's a couple of names that are like I think are Expanse people. Yeah, like Pedar, of course, has been a great contributor in the chat. Obviously, you know the story very, very well, and it's a pleasure to have you. So until then, everybody, I'm sorry. I totally derailed there for a second. I was reading the chat. And if there is a worse time to derail my train of thought, I don't know what it is. But you can put that in the comment section down below because we're ending this stream here, y'all. So peace. And be excellent to each other.
Bye, guys.
All right. Bye.
Bye.